My children think I'm a poor old woman grateful for the garage they let me sleep in. They charge me nothing, but I cook, clean, and babysit for free. They don't know I sold the bakery for $2.1 million. They don't know their father left another $1.5 million with one condition. They don't know I've been watching. And they definitely don't know what I'm about to do. I wake at 5 a.m., same as I have for 45 years. The difference is the smell. In the bakery, I woke to yeast and warmth and possibility. Here, in the room behind my son Marco's garage in Naperville, Illinois, I wake to concrete and motor oil and the faint hum of the chest freezer against the wall. The room is 12 feet by 14 feet. I measured it once, back when I still believed this arrangement was temporary. That was 3 years ago. There's a twin bed with a mattress that sags in the middle. A small dresser Antonio and I bought at a garage sale in 1982. A mini fridge that clicks and groans through the night. And a hot plate I'm not supposed to use because Diane says it's a fire hazard. There's one window, and it faces a brick wall. On sunny days, I get about 45 minutes of indirect light. I don't complain. Complaining is for people who've forgotten that others have it worse. I have a roof. I have running water, cold only, but running. I have a small bathroom that used to be a utility closet. I have my rosary, my photo of Antonio, and a recipe notebook with 45 years of memories pressed between its pages. What I don't have is a place at my son's table. I swing my legs over the side of the bed, feet finding the cold concrete floor. My knees protest, they always do now, but I push myself up anyway. There's work to do. There's always work to do. Today is Easter Sunday. I shower quickly in water that never quite gets warm enough. Dress in my nicest blouse. The pale blue one, Antonio said, matched my eyes, and twist my silver-streaked hair into the bun I've worn since I was 19 years old. I look in the small mirror hanging above the dresser. 69 years old, 45 years of waking before dawn. Hands scarred from 1,000 burns, calloused from 1,000,000 loaves. Eyes that have watched 7 children grow up, move away, and slowly forget where they came from. I grab my apron, the same apron I wore in the bakery. Washed so many times the original red has faded to pink, and walk through the connecting door into the main garage. Marco's BMW gleams under the fluorescent lights. Diane's Mercedes sits beside it. 2 cars worth more than my parents' house in Pilsen. I walk past them without looking. The door to the main house is unlocked. It's always unlocked in the morning because they know I'm coming. For 3 years, I've walked through this door at 5:30 a.m. to start breakfast. For 3 years, I've cooked eggs, bacon, pancakes, fresh squeezed orange juice. For 3 years, I've set their table, fed their twins, and cleaned their kitchen while they sleep an extra hour. They've never once invited me to eat with them. Today, because it's Easter, I've prepared something special. Last night, after everyone went to bed, I made tamales, my mother's recipe, passed down from her mother, passed down from hers. I made menudo, the soup Antonio loved, the one that takes 6 hours to cook properly. And at 3 a.m., I crept into the garage and used my forbidden hot plate to make conchas, the sweet bread shells that made Delgado's bakery famous across Chicago's South Side. The kitchen fills with the smell of my childhood, my marriage, my life's work. I set the dining room table for 7. Marco, Diane, their 16-year-old twins, Madison and Marcus, and 3 extra places, because Carmen and her husband Bradley drove up from Atlanta, and Lucia is coming from Milwaukee with her 2 kids. 7 plates. My grandmother's china, the set I gave Marco when he bought this house, because I thought foolishly that it might make this place feel like home. By 9 a.m., the family starts trickling downstairs. The twins grab tamales and disappear back to their rooms, faces buried in phones. Diane pours herself coffee, nods at me once, and takes her cup to the living room, where she immediately opens her laptop. Marco kisses my cheek a quick, distracted peck and says, Carmen arrives at 10. Bradley trailing behind her, carrying nothing. She hugs me the way you hug a distant relative at a funeral. Obligatory, brief. Already thinking about when you can leave. The tamales look great, Mom, she says. But she doesn't take one. She's watching her carbs. Lucia comes at 11 with her kids. And for a moment, just a moment, I feel something like joy. Her daughter, Sophia, 12 years old and named after my youngest, runs to me and wraps her arms around my waist. Abuela, I missed you. And I hold her tight, breathing in the smell of her strawberry shampoo. And I think, this is why I stay. By noon, the dining room is full of noise, children arguing, adults talking over each other, phones buzzing. I stand in the kitchen doorway, watching. 7 people at the table, 8 chairs. No one has noticed the empty seat. No one has asked me to sit down. I tell myself it doesn't matter. I tell myself they're busy, distracted, that they don't mean anything by it. I tell myself the same lies I've been telling myself for 3 years. Then the doorbell rings. Marco frowns. We expecting anyone else? I shake my head. But something in my chest tightens. Something that feels like premonition. Marco opens the door. And standing on the porch is a man I haven't seen in 3 years. Mr. Chen, the man who bought my bakery. He's holding a bouquet of flowers in a small box wrapped in red paper. And his face breaks into a wide smile when he sees me standing behind my son. Mrs. Delgado, he says, stepping forward. Marco looks confused. Thank her? For what? Mr. Chen laughs warmly. For everything. For the recipes, the training, the goodwill she built over 45 years. He turns to me, eyes shining with genuine gratitude. Mrs. Delgado, I can never thank you enough. 2.1 million was a bargain for what you built. That bakery is worth twice that now, and it's all because of the foundation you created. The room goes silent. I watch the words hit my family like a wave. Marco's mouth opens, then closes. Diane's laptop slides off her lap. Carmen chokes on her sparkling water. Even the twins look up from their phones. $2.1 million. Mr. Chen doesn't notice. He's still talking, still praising the recipes, still saying how honored he is to carry on my legacy. I smile and nod and accept his flowers. And the whole time, I feel my children's eyes burning into me. When Mr. Chen finally leaves, blessedly unaware of the bomb he's just detonated, I turn to find 7 faces staring at me with expressions I've seen before. Not love, not concern. Calculation. Mom, Marco says slowly, you sold the bakery? I don't answer. I simply walk back to the kitchen, untie my apron, and hang it on its hook. My phone buzzes. Then again. Then again. By midnight, I have 47 missed calls. 14 from Marco, 8 from Carmen, 6 from Lucia, 4 from my son Raphael in Chicago, who wasn't even at dinner, 5 from Elena in New York, 4 from Miguel in Madison, 6 from Sophia downtown. 47 calls. Not one of them asked if I'd eaten dinner. Not one of them asked if I was okay. Every single voicemail was about the money. I sit on my sagging mattress in my concrete room behind the garage, listening to my children's voices asking the same question over and over. How much is left? Where is it? Why didn't you tell us? And in the silence between their words, I hear my husband's voice, gentle and knowing, asking the question he asked me on his deathbed. Rosa, mi amor, are you sure you want to know who our children really are? I didn't answer him then. I'm beginning to answer now. I met Antonio Miguel Delgado in the summer of 1975 at a quinceañera for a girl whose name I can no longer remember. I was 17, working at my aunt's tortilleria in Pilsen, and my hands already carried the calluses of someone twice my age. Antonio was 19, quiet, with dark, serious eyes and flour dusted across his Sunday shirt because he'd come straight from his father's panaderia without bothering to change. He asked me to dance. I said no. He asked me again. I said no again. The third time, he didn't ask. He simply held out his hand and waited. I took it. We danced 3 songs without speaking. When the music stopped, he said, "You smell like corn masa." I should have been offended. Instead, I laughed. No one had ever stated the obvious, so plainly, so unapologetically. "You smell like yeast," I said. He smiled the first time I'd seen his face do anything but frown and said, "Then, we're already compatible." We married 2 years later in Street Pius V Church, 6 blocks from where I was born. I was 19. He was 21. Between us, we had $847 in savings, a recipe notebook from his grandmother, and a dream so big it scared me to say it out loud. We wanted our own bakery. It took us a year to find a location, a crumbling storefront on 18th Street, with a leaking roof, a broken oven, and a rent we could barely afford. We moved in on January 3rd, 1978. Chicago was buried under 18 inches of snow. The pipes had frozen. We slept on the floor that first night, wrapped in every blanket we owned, and Antonio held me close and whispered, "By next winter, this place will be warm. I promise." He kept that promise. He kept every promise he ever made. Delgado's Bakery opened on Valentine's Day, 1978. Our first customer was an old woman named Mrs. Kowalski, who lived above the laundromat next door. She bought 3 conchas and a loaf of pan de muerto, even though it wasn't Day of the Dead, because she said the bread looked too pretty not to eat. She paid in quarters and nickels. And I cried after she left. Not because the sale was small, but because it was real. For 45 years, we baked. Antonio handled the numbers, the ordering, the accounts, the endless negotiations with suppliers who tried to overcharge the Mexican couple with the small shop. I handled the dough. I woke at 2 a.m., same as him. But while he counted inventory, I mixed and kneaded and shaped. By 4 a.m., the first loaves were rising. By 5 a.m., the ovens were full. By 6 a.m., when we unlocked the doors, the smell of fresh bread had drifted 3 blocks in every direction. People came. At first, just the neighborhood other Mexican families who missed the panaderias of their childhoods. Polish grandmothers who recognized the love in handmade dough. Black families from the blocks east of us who said our pound cake rivaled their own grandmothers. Then, slowly, people from outside Pilsen. Then, from outside Chicago. The Tribune wrote about us in 1987. "A hidden gem in Pilsen," the headline said. The next day, the line stretched around the block. We sold out by 9 a.m. Antonio looked at me across the empty display cases and said, "I think we need a bigger oven." We got 3. But more important than the ovens, more important than the newspaper articles and the awards, and the customers who drove 2 hours just for our tres leches cake, more important than all of it were the 7 lives we built above that bakery. Marco came first. In 1980, I was 22, terrified, convinced I couldn't be a mother and a baker at the same time. Antonio built a crib in the corner of the kitchen so I could watch Marco sleep while I kneaded. "That boy grew up with flour in his first words pan," he said, reaching for a roll before he could even walk properly. Carmen came in 1982, Elena in 1985, then Lucia in 1987. By the time Raphael was born in 1988, I had learned that motherhood and bread making were the same thing. You pour love into something, you shape it with your hands, and you pray it rises the way it should. Miguel came in 1994. Our surprise, our miracle baby, as Antonio called him. And then Sophia in 1998, when I was 40 and convinced my body had nothing left to give. 7 children in 18 years, 7 mouths to feed, 7 hearts to nurture, 7 souls to prepare for a world that would not always be kind. We raised them in that bakery. They did homework on flour-dusted tables. They learned to count by helping Antonio with the register. They fought in the back room, made up in the front room, and fell asleep to the sound of dough being punched down at 3 a.m. Every birthday cake came from our ovens. Every scraped knee was bandaged with hands still sticky from icing. And every Christmas Eve, without fail, we baked for Street Michael's homeless shelter. It started small, 200 loaves in 1980. Antonio's idea. We have more than we need, he said. Others have nothing. Bread should go where it's needed. So we baked through the night, all of us. Even tiny Marco stirring batter in his pajamas. By morning, we loaded the van and drove to Street Michael's. And I watched my husband hand a warm loaf to a man with no coat and eyes that had forgotten how to hope. That man cried. Antonio cried. I cried. We never missed a year. Not once in 43 years. The numbers grew: 500 loaves, then 800, then over 1,000. But the feeling never changed. That feeling of giving something you made with your own hands to someone who had nothing. I thought my children understood that feeling. I thought they carried it with them when they left. I was wrong. Antonio died on March 17th, 2021. He was 71 years old. He'd been having chest pains for months, but refused to see a doctor because the bakery needs me. That morning, at 4 a.m., I heard a sound from the kitchen. Not a crash, just a soft thump, like dough dropping from the counter. I found him on the floor, still holding a ball of masa, still wearing his apron. His eyes were open. His hands were warm. But the man I had loved for 46 years was already gone. I sat with him until the sun came up. I didn't call anyone. I didn't scream or cry. I just held his hand and talked to him, the way I had every morning for nearly half a century. I told him about the orders for the day. I told him the sourdough starter needed feeding. I told him I wasn't ready to do this alone. The paramedics came at 6:15 a.m. Carmen was the first child I called. She didn't answer. I left a voicemail. Mija, your father is gone. Please, come home. She called back 3 hours later, from a spa in Sedona. Mom, I'll try to get a flight, but Bradley and I have dinner reservations tonight. Can the funeral wait until next week? The funeral could not wait, but Carmen could. She arrived 2 days late, stayed 4 hours, and left before the reception ended because Bradley had a golf tournament. I stood at my husband's grave, surrounded by 6 of my 7 children. Marco checking his phone, Carmen glancing at her watch, Lucia crying quietly, Rafael stone-faced and angry, Elena staring at nothing, Miguel holding my hand like he was afraid I'd float away, and I wondered when I had lost them. Or maybe the better question was, had I ever really had them at all? After the funeral, Antonio's attorney contacted me. There were documents, he said, things my husband had prepared that I didn't know about. A trust, investments, decisions made over decades. Quietly, carefully, without telling anyone, including me. For 45 years, I thought I knew everything about my husband. It turned out I didn't know the half of it. And 2 years after I buried him, I made a decision I told no one about. I sold Delgado's bakery to Mr. Chen for $2.1 million. Then I moved into my son's garage, and I waited. I have 7 children. I carried each of them for 9 months, taught them to read and knead and pray. I know their favorite foods, their childhood fears, the exact pitch of their cries when they were hungry versus tired. I also know their excuses. After 47 missed calls on Easter Sunday, I've memorized every single one. Marco, my firstborn, is 46. He was the baby who slept in the bakery kitchen, the toddler who said pan before mama. I thought he understood what we built. Instead, he became a real estate developer. Suits that cost more than our first month's rent. A BMW with heated seats. A wife named Diane, with sharp cheekbones and sharper eyes. He sees me every day I live behind his garage, but he hasn't had a real conversation with me in 19 months. His voicemail. Mom, we need to talk about this bakery thing. $2 million is a lot of money. I hope you have a financial advisor. I'll come by the garage tomorrow. He said the garage like it was a location, not my home. He didn't say he loved me. Grade C minus. Carmen, 44, was my shadow. The girl who decorated every birthday cake, who swore she'd take over the bakery someday. She went to Northwestern instead. Married Bradley Mitchell, summer home in the Hamptons, winter home in Aspen. She changed her name professionally. Not Delgado anymore, just Carmen Mitchell. She tells colleagues her parents owned a small food business. Her voicemail. Mom, wow, that's a lot to process. Bradley says there could be tax implications. Can you send me the paperwork? Also, are you okay? The "are you okay" came 19 seconds into a 30-second message. An afterthought. Grade B minus for effort. D for sincerity. Lucia, 41, was always the quiet one. Middle child, lost between Carmen's ambition and the younger kid's noise. She became a teacher, had 2 children. Then her husband Daniel left her 3 years ago. She calls every Sunday without fail, the only one who remembers I hate carnations. But Lucia has a flaw. She sees things and says nothing. I know she knew about the money Marco was taking. I saw it in her eyes. 6 months ago, guilt quickly smothered. She didn't warn me. She kept the peace, even when peace was built on lies. Her voicemail was 22 seconds. Mama, I don't know what to say. I'm so sorry. Please call me. Then, crying before she hung up. Grade incomplete. She knows the material, but refuses to turn in the assignment. Rafael, 38, is a firefighter. Married to Maria, father of 3, Antonio Jr., Isabella, and baby Diego. He has his father's hands and his father's inability to express emotion without yelling. Rafael is the only one who treats me like his mother. Every Sunday, without fail. He fixes things in my room without being asked. He once drove 2 hours in a snowstorm because my heater sounded funny. His voicemail. Ma, it's Rafa. Don't talk to anyone until I get there. I mean it. Nobody. I'm coming tomorrow. He didn't ask about the money. He just said he was coming. Grade A for loyalty. B overall. Elena, 35, was supposed to take over the bakery. She had the hands quick, precise, creative. By 16, her conchas were better than mine. Then she left. Culinary school in New York. Sous chef at a restaurant where entree cost more than a week of groceries. She hasn't been home for Christmas in 4 years. I used to think Elena hated the bakery. Now I understand she loved it too much. She didn't want to inherit something. She wanted to build her own. Her voicemail surprised me. Mom, I don't care about the money. I just need to know why you didn't tell me. I thought we were closer than that. She sounded hurt. Not greedy. Hurt. Grade B+. Miguel, 32, teaches music in Madison. He married David 3 years ago, kind eyes, a laugh that fills a room. When Miguel came out at 22, Antonio cried. Not from shame, from fear that the world would be cruel. But I held Miguel's hand and told him what my grandmother said. Love is bread. It doesn't ask who eats it. Miguel is the peacemaker, the one who calls on every birthday, who sends group texts organizing dinners that never happen. He's exhausted from holding this family together with hope and good intentions. His voicemail. Mom, I'm sure everyone's freaking out, but I just want you to know, I don't care about the money. I care about you. David says hi. We love you. Grade A for heart. A for honesty. Sophia, 28. My baby. Social worker on Chicago's West Side. Engaged to James, the paramedic. She's the only one who ever looked Diane in the eye and said, that was 18 months ago. Diane hasn't spoken to Sophia since. Her voicemail. Mom, don't answer calls from Marco or Carmen. Don't sign anything. Don't let Diane near you. I'm coming tomorrow morning. You are not alone. Grade A+. Extra credit for courage. Plus. Ribend. Plus. 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 E. Plus. Plus. 7 children. 7 voicemails. 7 different relationships. With the truth. And somewhere in those 47 calls was the answer to Antonio's deathbed question. Are you sure you want to know who our children really are? Yes, mi amor. I'm sure now. The garage door hummed at 11 p.m. Headlights swept across my window, then went dark. A knock. Not Marco's knock, sharp and impatient. This was hesitant, almost afraid. I opened the door. Standing in darkness, still wearing scrubs from her nursing shift, was Maria Rafael's wife. Eyes red, hands shaking. Mama Rosa, she whispered. I need to tell you something. About Marco. About what he's been doing to you. Rafael doesn't know I'm here. But you need to understand they're planning something. Something bad. And it's happening soon. Maria stood in my doorway, trembling like a woman who had just committed a betrayal she couldn't take back. In a way, she had. Rafael's wife, coming to me behind her husband's back, that took courage or desperation. Come inside, I said. Before someone sees, she slipped through the door, glancing over her shoulder at the dark house. Marco and Diane's bedroom light was off. Good. I guided Maria to the edge of my bed, the only place to sit, and pulled the folding chair close. Tell me everything. Maria took a breath. Her hands were still shaking. 3 weeks ago, Rafael asked me to look at some medical bills. He thought our insurance was being overcharged. I work in hospital billing, he figured I'd spot errors faster. I nodded. Maria was a nurse, but she'd spent years in the administrative side before moving to patient care. Numbers were her language. The bills weren't ours, she continued. They were yours. My stomach tightened. Mine? Medicare statements. Explanation of benefits. Claims submitted in your name for services you never received. She pulled a folder from her bag. I hadn't even noticed she was carrying one. Physical therapy sessions. Cognitive assessments. A neurological consultation in February. I stared at the papers she spread across my thin blanket. My name, my Medicare number, dates, and codes, and amounts that meant nothing to me. I never had these appointments. I said, I know. Maria's voice cracked. Mama Rosa, someone has been billing Medicare, using your information, thousands of dollars. And that's not all. She pulled out another stack. Bank statements, credit card bills, documents I had never seen because my mail, I realize now, had stopped coming to me months ago. I did some digging, Maria said. I shouldn't have, but I couldn't stop. There are 3 credit cards in your name, opened in the last 2 years, combined balance of $45,000. 45,000. I felt the number like a punch. And these. She handed me a page of transactions. Transfers from your joint checking account. The one Antonio set up for household expenses. $95,000 moved out over the last 3 years. Small amounts at first, 500 here, 1,000 there. Then bigger, 10,000 in January, 15,000 last month. I looked at the account. The one Marco had access to. The one I'd added his name to after Antonio died, because he offered to help with the bills. Marco, I whispered. Maria nodded. And Diane. She's the one who opened the credit cards. I found the applications. Her handwriting. But your signature. Forged. The room felt smaller. The concrete walls pressed in. 45 years of building something honest. And my own son had been stealing from me like I was a stranger. How much? I asked. Total. Maria didn't hesitate. She'd already done the math. Credit cards, 45,000. Account transfers, 95,000. Forged checks I found copies of, 40,000. Medicare fraud harder to calculate. but at least 15 to 20,000 in false claims. She paused. Let me add it up myself. $180,000. Maybe more. There's something else, Maria said quietly. I overheard Diane on the phone last week. She was talking to someone, a lawyer, I think, about power of attorney, emergency guardianship. She said you were showing signs of cognitive decline, that you couldn't manage your own affairs. My hands went cold. I'm not. I know you're not. Maria grabbed my hands, held them tight. You're sharper than half the doctors I work with. But Diane doesn't care about the truth. She cares about control. If she gets guardianship, she controls everything. The bakery money, Antonio's investments, all of it. I thought about Mr. Chen's visit. The $2.1 million he'd mentioned so casually. Diane's face when she heard that number. The calculation in her eyes. She didn't know about the bakery sale until today. But she'd been stealing anyway. Taking whatever she could reach. Assuming I was just a poor old woman with a small pension. Now she knew the truth. And she wanted it all. Why are you telling me this? I asked Maria. Raphael is your husband. Marco is his brother. Maria's eyes filled with tears. Because you're my children's grandmother. Because you taught me how to make Antonio's favorite soup when I was too proud to ask my own mother. Because for 3 years, you've cooked for this family and lived in this concrete room, and not once have you complained. She wiped her face. And because my husband loves you too much to see what's happening, he thinks Marco is just bad with money. He doesn't know about the fraud. If he did, she shook her head. Raphael would kill him. I'm not exaggerating. He would end up in prison, and my children would lose their father. I understood then. Maria wasn't just protecting me. She was protecting everyone. What do I do? I asked. You need a lawyer. A real one, not anyone Diane knows. Someone who specializes in elder law. And you need to move. Get out of this house before they can file those guardianship papers. Move where? Maria hesitated. There's a cottage in Wisconsin. Antonio bought it 20 years ago. Did you know that? I blinked. The lake house. I thought he sold it after. He didn't. It's still in your name. Both your names. Paid off completely. I found the deed when I was looking through the documents. Antonio. Even in death, still leaving me surprises. Still protecting me in ways I never knew. Go there, Maria said. Tomorrow if you can. Take only what matters. I'll help you, but we have to be careful. If Diane finds out I told you any of this, she didn't finish. She didn't have to. I looked around my room, 12 feet by 14 feet of concrete and regret. My grandmother's rosary on the dresser, Antonio's photo on the nightstand, the recipe notebook that held 45 years of memories. Everything I truly needed could fit in one suitcase. Maria, I said. She hugged me tight, desperate. The embrace of a woman who had just risked her marriage to do the right thing. Call Sophia in the morning. She'll know what to do. And Mama Rosa, don't trust anyone else. Not until you're safe. After she left, I sat alone in the silence of the garage. $180,000 stolen. Guardianship papers being prepared. A son who saw me as a bank account. But I also had a cottage I'd forgotten existed. A daughter-in-law brave enough to betray her own family. And somewhere in a wooden box I'd never opened, Antonio's final secrets were waiting. I didn't sleep that night. I packed. By 5 a.m., I had one suitcase ready, and Sophia's number pulled up on my phone. It was time to stop watching. It was time to move. Sophia arrived at 6 a.m., before the sun had fully risen over Naperville. She didn't knock, just sent a text that said, outside, and waited with the engine running. I walked out of the garage carrying one suitcase, my purse, and Antonio's photo wrapped in a dishcloth. 3 years of living in that concrete room, and this was all I needed. Everything else was just furniture. Sophia didn't ask questions until we were on the highway, heading north toward Wisconsin. Then she glanced at me in the rearview mirror. I'd insisted on sitting in the back, where Marco couldn't see me if he happened to drive past, and said, "Okay, Mom, tell me everything." So I did. I told her about Maria's midnight visit, the credit cards, the forged checks, the Medicare fraud, the $180,000 stolen over 3 years, the guardianship papers Diane was preparing. Sophia's knuckles went white on the steering wheel. "I'm going to kill him." "No, Mija, you're going to help me." "Help you do what?" I took a breath. "First, I need to tell you something. Something I haven't told anyone." Sophia's eyes found mine in the mirror. Waiting. "Your father left more than memories," I said. "He left money. A lot of money." I watched her face as I explained. Antonio had been investing quietly for 40 years. Every month, a small percentage of bakery profits moved into accounts I never knew existed. Mutual funds, bonds, a retirement portfolio that grew slowly, steadily. The way bread rises when you give it time. When he died, I discovered it all. $1.2 million in investments. The Wisconsin cottage, paid off, worth about $180,000. His life insurance policy, $120,000. And then, 2 years later, I made my own decision. And 2 years later, I sold the bakery, I said. Mr. Chen paid $2.1 million. I never told anyone. Sophia nearly swerved off the road. 2.1 million? Plus your father's investments. Plus the cottage. Plus insurance. I let her do the math. She did it fast. "Mom, that's over $3.5 million. 3.6. I confirmed. Give or take. Silence. The highway hummed beneath us. Sophia opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. "Why?" she finally asked. "Why didn't you tell us? Why did you move into Marco's garage? If you had..." She couldn't finish, because I wanted to know. Know what? I looked out the window at the Illinois farmland rolling past. Green fields, red barns, a sky so wide it made me feel small. "Your father asked me something on his deathbed," I said. "He asked if I wanted to know who our children really were." At the time, I didn't understand. But after the funeral, after Carmen left early, after Marco started talking about managing my affairs, after your brothers and sisters scattered like seeds in the wind, I understood. I turned back to Sophia. I wanted to see what would happen if I had nothing. If I was just a poor old woman with a social security check and a room in the garage, would they take care of me? Would they visit? Would they even notice I was there? Sophia's eyes were wet. "Mom, 3 years, I said. I cooked for Marco's family every day. I cleaned their house. I watched their children. I paid nothing in rent, but I gave everything in labor. And not once, Sophia, did anyone offer me a seat at the dinner table. The car was silent, except for Sophia's quiet crying. Raphael came, she said finally. Every Sunday, Raphael came. You came, Miguel called. I nodded. 3 out of 7. Your father would have said that was a failing grade. What about Lucia? Elena? Lucia knew Marco was stealing. She said nothing. Elena sent money, but not herself. I sighed. They're not bad people, Mija. They're just lost. They forgot that family isn't something you inherit. It's something you build. Sophia wiped her face with her sleeve. So what now? You have $3 million and a cottage in Wisconsin. What's the plan? First, we go to the cottage. I haven't seen it since before your father died. I paused. Then I need a lawyer. Someone who can protect me from Diane. I know someone. Rebecca Okonkwo, she specializes in elder law. Helped one of my clients get out of a guardianship scam last year. Good. Call her. I reached into my purse and pulled out the documents Maria had given me. She'll need these. Sophia glanced at the papers. Evidence of the fraud, every transaction, every forged signature. Every lie. Marco and Diane thought I was too old to notice. For the first time that morning, Sophia smiled. It wasn't a happy smile, it was something fiercer. Pride, maybe, or recognition. You were never the victim, were you? She said. You were watching the whole time. Your father taught me how to bake, I said. But he also taught me how to wait. Good bread takes patience. So does justice. We drove another hour before Sophia spoke again. Mom, there's something I need to ask. The trust. Dad's investments. Is there a plan for it? A will? Or, I thought about the wooden box Father Diego had mentioned, the one Antonio left with his confessor, the one containing documents I still hadn't seen. Your father left instructions, I said carefully. I don't know all the details yet, but I know there's a condition. A condition for the inheritance. Something all 7 of you have to do together. Sophia frowned. All 7? Including Marco and Carmen? Including Marco and Carmen. That's impossible. Carmen barely acknowledges we exist. I watched the road ahead. Wisconsin was getting closer. I could almost smell the lake, the pine trees, the quiet. Deserve has nothing to do with it, I said. Your father believed in second chances. He believed that people could change if you gave them the right reason. And if they don't change, I thought about Antonio's letter, waiting for me somewhere. The conditions he'd set, the test he'd designed. Then they lose everything, I said. And they'll have no one to blame but themselves. Sophia nodded slowly. When do we find out? About the condition? Soon. Father Diego has the documents. But first, I pointed at a sign ahead. Wisconsin welcomes you. First, I need to remember how to live for myself. The cottage appeared 2 hours later, a small house on a lake, surrounded by pine trees and silence. Antonio had bought it 20 years ago as our retirement dream. We'd visited twice, talked about fixing it up, made plans we never kept. Now it was just mine. Sophia helped me carry my suitcase inside. The air smelled like dust and old wood, and something else, something that made my chest tight. Antonio's cardigan, still hanging by the door. After 5 years, I pressed my face into the fabric and breathed. Oh, mi amor, I whispered. What did you leave me? 3 days of peace. That's all I got. 3 days of waking to birdsong instead of garage door motors. 3 days of drinking coffee on the porch, watching the lake turn gold at sunrise. 3 days of learning to breathe again. On the 4th day, Marco's BMW pulled into my driveway. I was in the kitchen making lunch when I heard the engine. Through the window, I watched my eldest son step out of the car, adjusting his tie like he was arriving at a business meeting. Diane followed, carrying a leather briefcase. Behind them came a third person, a man I didn't recognize. Gray suit, silver hair, the practiced smile of someone who lies professionally. Sophia had gone back to Chicago that morning. I was alone. I didn't panic. I'd been expecting this. I wiped my hands on a dishcloth, removed my apron, and walked to the front door. Marco, I said. You found me. He didn't hug me. Didn't ask how I was. Mom, we need to talk. Then talk. Diane stepped forward, smile tight. Rosa, this is Thomas Brennan. He's a senior financial advisor specializing in retirement planning. We thought it would be helpful to have a professional present. I looked at Thomas Brennan. Expensive watch, manicured nails, eyes that didn't quite meet mine. And what exactly are we discussing? I asked. Marco glanced at Diane. She nodded a small gesture, almost imperceptible, but I caught it. She was leading this. He was just following. Mom, there's no easy way to say this. Marco's voice had that rehearsed quality, like he'd practiced in the car. We're concerned about you, living alone up here, at your age, with significant assets. It's not safe. Not safe, I repeated. Financially speaking, Diane added. The bakery sale. The investments Antonio left. These are complex matters. We just want to make sure you're protected. Thomas Brennan opened his briefcase and produced a stack of documents. Mrs. Delgado, I've reviewed your situation, and I have to say, there are some concerning patterns. Large assets, minimal oversight, no clear estate plan. How did you review my situation? I interrupted. I never gave you permission to access my financial information. Brennan's smile flickered. Marco jumped in. I have access to some of your accounts, Mom. Remember? You added me, after Dad died, to help pay bills. Not to share my information with strangers. He's not a stranger. He's a professional. He's someone I've never met. Discussing money I've never discussed with him. I kept my voice calm. That's the definition of a stranger. Diane's patience was thinning. I could see it in the way her jaw tightened. Rosa, let's not make this difficult. We're here because we love you. We're worried. Worried about what? Exactly. Your cognitive state. Diane said it plainly, like she was reading from a script. You sold a business worth over $2 million without consulting your family. You moved to an isolated cottage without telling anyone. You've been making large financial decisions alone. She pulled another document from Brennan's stack. Dr. Sandra Mitchell, a geriatric specialist, has reviewed your recent behavior patterns. She believes there may be early signs of cognitive decline. I stared at the paper. A doctor's letterhead, medical terminology, words like diminished capacity and impaired judgment. I've never met Dr. Sandra Mitchell, I said. She reviewed the information we provided. Information you provided. I let that hang in the air. A doctor diagnosed me without ever meeting me, based on information my son and his wife gave her. Is that correct? Silence. I stepped closer to Diane. Close enough to see the tiny crack in her composure. Let me tell you something about cognitive decline, I said softly. When I was 14, I memorized every recipe in my grandmother's notebook. 47 recipes, ingredients and measurements, by heart. Would you like me to recite them? Diane said nothing. When Antonio died, I handled the funeral arrangements, the probate, the business transition, alone. I negotiated the bakery sale over 6 months, reviewed every contract, rejected 3 offers before accepting Mr. Chen's. Does that sound like diminished capacity? Marco shifted uncomfortably. Mom, I'm not finished. I turned to Brennan. You walked into my home with documents I didn't request, discussing finances you have no right to access, representing people who have stolen from me. Yes, stolen. Marco's face went pale. What are you talking about? 3 credit cards opened in my name. $95,000 transferred from my account. $40,000 in forged checks. I watched each number land like a blow. Did you think I wouldn't notice? Did you think I was too old? Too stupid? Too grateful for my little room in your garage? Those were loans, Marco stammered. We were going to pay them back. Loans require consent. These were theft. I pulled my phone from my pocket. And this conversation? I've been recording since you knocked on the door. Diane's face went white. You can't. Wisconsin is a one-party consent state. I checked. I smiled not warmly. My attorney, Rebecca Okonkwo, specializes in elder financial abuse. She's very interested in speaking with you. Marco looked like he might vomit. Diane grabbed his arm. We should go. She hissed. Yes, I agreed. You should. But Marco didn't move. For a moment, I saw something in his eyes, something that might have been shame, or fear, or the ghost of the boy who used to fall asleep in my bakery kitchen, covered in flour and completely safe. Mom, he said quietly, I'm sorry. Sorry you did it? Or, sorry you got caught? He couldn't answer. Diane pulled him toward the door. Marco. My voice stopped him at the threshold. You have a choice. You can walk away from this family forever and face the legal consequences alone, or you can come back. Genuinely. Come back and earn your forgiveness. And if I come back, you'll drop the charges? There are no charges yet. Whether there will be depends entirely on what you do next. He stared at me for a long moment. Then Diane's hand tightened on his arm, and he let her pull him away. The BMW's engine faded into the trees. I stood on the porch, phone still in my hand, recording nothing now but the sound of wind through the pines. My hands were shaking. Not from fear, from something else. Grief, maybe. The grief of a mother who has just watched her son choose wrong. I called Sophia. They came, I said. It's worse than we thought. Call Rebecca, and call Father Diego. It's time to read your father's letter. Father Diego arrived 2 days later, driving a 20-year-old Honda Civic that wheezed up my driveway like an old man climbing stairs. He was 65, gray-bearded, with hands that had blessed thousands and buried just as many. He'd known Antonio since childhood, 2 boys from Pilsen who took different paths but never lost each other. I met him on the porch with coffee and pan dulce I'd baked that morning. The first bread I'd made since leaving Chicago. My hands remembered what my heart had forgotten. Rosa. He embraced me warm, solid, smelling of incense and old books. You look good, stronger than I expected. I'm Mexican, I said. We don't break. We bend. He laughed, but his eyes were serious. Under his arm, he carried a wooden box I'd never seen cedar, about the size of a shoebox, with Antonio's initials carved into the lid. He gave this to me 6 months before he died, Father Diego said. Made me promise not to open it until you asked. Said you'd know when the time was right. I stared at the box. 6 months before he died. That meant Antonio knew. He knew his heart was failing, knew he was running out of time, and he'd spent those final months preparing. Not telling me, but preparing. Why didn't he say anything? I whispered. Because he didn't want you to watch him die slowly. He wanted you to have him whole, until the end. Father Diego set the box on the porch table. He also said you'd be angry, and that he was sorry, and that you'd understand eventually. I wasn't angry. I was something deeper than anger. A sadness so heavy, it felt like drowning. Open it, Father Diego said gently. He wanted you to read it here, with witnesses who love you. Konitsi, Sophia had arrived an hour earlier. She stood behind me now, hand on my shoulder. I took a breath, lifted the lid. Inside, a stack of documents, a smaller envelope addressed to me in Antonio's handwriting, and a photograph I'd never seen our wedding day. Antonio looking at me with an expression I'd forgotten he was capable of. Pure, terrified, overwhelming, love. I picked up the envelope first. Cream-colored paper, sealed with wax. My name in his careful script, Para mi Rosa. I broke the seal. Mi amor, if you're reading this, then I am gone. And you have finally asked the questions I couldn't answer while I was alive. I knew about my heart. Dr. Fernandez told me 18 months ago the damage was too severe, the surgery too risky. I chose not to tell you because I knew what you would do. You would have closed the bakery, spent every moment at my side, sacrificed everything to give me a few more months, and I didn't want those months. I wanted to die kneading dough, not lying in a hospital bed. I'm sorry for the secrets, but I'm not sorry for what I've done. For 40 years, I watched our children grow. I watched them succeed, struggle, fail, rise again. And I watched some of them forget where they came from, forget what we taught them, forget that bread is more than flour, it's love made visible. So I created a test. I turned the page. The handwriting grew more urgent. Inside this box, you'll find the documents for a trust I established 3 years ago. The Antonio Miguel Delgado Family Trust. Value $1.5 million, separate from your bakery money, separate from everything else. The condition is simple. All 7 of our children must work together, not separately. together to bake and deliver 1,000 loaves of bread to Street Michael's homeless shelter on Christmas Eve. They must do this with their own hands, as you taught them. They must do it as a family. If any one of them refuses, the entire trust goes to the shelter instead. No exceptions, no extensions, no excuses. Sophia made a sound behind me, something between a gasp and a sob. I kept reading. I know what you're thinking. Marco will never agree. Carmen has forgotten how to need. The children are scattered, broken, angry at each other and at us. But Rosa, that's the point. If they can't give one day to feed the hungry, one day to honor what we built, one day to be a family again, then they don't deserve the money. And the shelter, which has fed thousands of souls for decades, will put it to better use than children who have forgotten how to give. There's one more thing. A reserve fund $200,000 under your sole control. If any child shows genuine change within 5 years, you may give them their portion of this fund. But only you can judge what genuine means. I trust you. I've always trusted you. The letter ended with a line that broke me. Te amo. Me, Rosa. In this life and the next. Save me a seat at the table. Antonio. I couldn't speak. The words blurred through tears I'd been holding for 5 years. Father Diego reached into the box and pulled out the legal documents. The trust is real, he said quietly. I've verified it with the attorney Gerald Patterson in Cambridge. Everything Antonio wrote is binding. Sophia took the papers, scanning them rapidly. Mom, this says all 7. All 7 children present and participating. If even one refuses, then nobody gets anything. I finished. And the shelter gets $1.5 million. Christmas Eve, Sophia said. That's less than 6 months away. I looked at Antonio's photograph. His terrified, loving eyes, staring back at me across 45 years. He designed this perfectly. A test of character, a test of family, a test that required the impossible, bringing 7 scattered children together to do the one thing they'd all abandoned. Bake bread for strangers. It can't be done, Sophia said. Marco won't come. Carmen won't come. After everything, your father thought it could be done. I folded the letter carefully, pressed it to my heart. He wouldn't have created this if he believed it was impossible. But how? How do we convince them? I stood, walked to the edge of the porch, looked out at the lake. The water was still, patient, waiting, like Antonio had always waited. We don't convince them, I said. We invite them. We tell them the truth. And then we let them choose. And if they choose wrong, I thought about Marco's face in my doorway. The flash of shame. The boy beneath the businessman. Then they lose everything, I said. And maybe, just maybe, that's exactly what they need. I scheduled the video call for Sunday evening, 7 p.m. Central, when everyone would be home from work and church and whatever excuses they usually hid behind. Sophia helped me set up the laptop on the kitchen table, angling the camera so the lake was visible through the window behind me. I wanted them to see where I was. I wanted them to know I wasn't hiding anymore. One by one, the faces appeared on screen. Rafael first, still in his firefighter's uniform. Maria visible in the background, holding baby Diego. Then Miguel, with David beside him, both looking nervous. Lucia joined from her apartment in Milwaukee. I could see the dishes piled in her sink, the exhaustion in her eyes. Elena appeared from what looked like a restaurant kitchen, still wearing her chef's whites. Marco and Carmen joined last. Marco was in his home office. Diane hovering just out of frame, I could see her shadow. Carmen was in what appeared to be a hotel room. Bradley nowhere in sight. 7 faces. 7 children. My entire heart. Scattered across 6 states and a lifetime of distance. Thank you for coming. Mom, what's this about? Marco's voice was clipped. We hadn't spoken since the cottage confrontation. It's about your father. And his final wish. I held up Antonio's letter. Even through the pixelated screen, I saw their faces change curiosity, confusion, and in some cases, fear. I read the entire letter aloud. Every word, the hidden illness, the secret trust, the $1.5 million, the condition. All 7 of our children must work together to bake and deliver 1,000 loaves of bread to Street Michael's homeless shelter on Christmas Eve. When I finished, silence filled the screen. 7 rectangles of frozen faces. Raphael spoke first. I'm in. No hesitation. No questions. Just 3 words. Solid as the man who said them. Me too. Miguel added quickly. David squeezed his shoulder. Lucia was crying. Mama, Yes. Of course yes. I should have. She couldn't finish, but she didn't need to. Elena's face was harder to read. She stared at something off camera for a long moment. 1,000 loaves, she finally said. That's a massive undertaking. We'd need a commercial kitchen, industrial equipment, at least 18 hours of continuous work. Can it be done? I asked. Another pause. Then, slowly, yes, if we have the right team. She looked directly at the camera. I'm in, but I'm running the kitchen. Nobody argues with my process. 4 children. 4 yeses. My heart lifted, then braced itself. Sophia? I asked, though I already knew her answer. You know I'm in, Mom. I've been in since the day you called me from that garage. 5. I turned to the last 2 faces on my screen. Marco, jaw tight. Carmen, arms crossed. Marco, he laughed a short, bitter sound. You want me to spend Christmas Eve baking bread? After everything? After you threatened to have me arrested? I haven't filed any charges. And I won't, if you participate. That's blackmail. That's a choice. Your father's choice, not mine. Diane's voice came from off-screen. This is ridiculous. A dead man can't dictate. Diane. My voice cut through like a knife through warm butter. This call is for family. You are not part of this conversation. The shadow retreated. Marco's face flushed red. What happens if I say no? He asked. Then the condition fails. All $1.5 million goes to Street Michael's shelter. Your siblings get nothing, not because of me, but because of you. Raphael's voice hardened. Marco, if you screw this up for everyone. Raphael. I raised my hand. Let him speak. Marco stared at me through the screen. I tried to find the boy I'd raised, the one who said pan before mama, who fell asleep covered in flour. He was in there somewhere, buried under Diane's influence and his own greed. But still there. I need to think about it, he said finally. Christmas Eve is in 5 months. Don't think too long. I turned to the last face. Carmen? My eldest daughter looked like she'd swallowed something sour. Mom, I have commitments. Bradley's family expects us in Aspen for Christmas. I can't or won't. It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. I leaned closer to the camera. Your father asked for one day in 45 years. He fed thousands of strangers while you were growing up every Christmas Eve, without fail. All he's asking is that you do it once, together. As the family he built, Carmen's eyes darted sideways toward someone off screen. Bradley, probably, whispering calculations in her ear. I'll let you know, she said. By when? By Thanksgiving. I'll decide by Thanksgiving. Not a yes, but not a no either. Then we wait, I said. But understand this, all of you. If Marco or Carmen refuses, nobody gets the money. Your father designed it that way intentionally. He wanted you to need each other. He wanted you to fight for each other. What if they never agree? Elena asked, quietly. Then the shelter feeds the hungry with $1.5 million, and you'll have to live with knowing you could have been part of something bigger than yourselves. The call ended shortly after. I sat alone at the kitchen table, laptop closed, staring at the lake. 5 children willing, 2 uncertain. 5 months to bring them together. Sophia called an hour later. Mom, I just got a Google alert. Diane filed a lawsuit this afternoon, before the call even ended. She's claiming emotional distress, undue influence, and she paused, and she's contesting the validity of Dad's trust. I closed my eyes. On what grounds? She's saying Dad wasn't mentally competent when he created it. That you manipulated him. That the whole thing should be thrown out and the money distributed equally regardless of conditions. Of course. If Diane couldn't steal the money through fraud, she'd try to take it through the courts. What does Rebecca say? She says the trust is solid. Dad had witnesses, medical clearance, everything documented. Diane's case is weak, but she can drag it out, make it expensive, delay everything past Christmas. I understood then. Diane's strategy wasn't to win. It was to run out the clock. If the lawsuit wasn't resolved by Christmas Eve, the trust condition couldn't be met. And if the condition couldn't be met, the money would go to the shelter anyway, but not before she destroyed what little family we had left. Then we move faster, I said. I looked at Antonio's letter, still lying on the table. His words echoed in my mind. If they can't give one day, they don't deserve the money. We don't wait for Thanksgiving, I said. We start now. Rafael, Miguel, Lucia, Elena, we begin planning immediately. We show Marco and Carmen that this is happening with or without them. And we pray that when they see their siblings standing together, and if they don't, I picked up the photograph from Antonio's box. Our wedding day. 2 young people who had nothing but each other and a dream. Then we bake the bread anyway, I said. Because your father was right. Some things matter more than money. The courtroom in Madison smelled like old wood and nervous sweat. I sat at the defendant's table, though I wasn't a defendant. Not really. This was a competency hearing. Diane's attempt to prove I couldn't manage my own affairs. But it felt like a trial. It felt like my entire life was being judged. Rebecca Okonkwo sat beside me, calm and immaculate in a navy suit. She'd warned me this would be ugly. Diane's attorney, a slick man named Harrison Croft, would try to paint me as confused, manipulated, possibly suffering from dementia. My job was simple. Stay calm, answer clearly, and let my mind speak for itself. The gallery was sparse. Sophia sat in the front row, jaw tight. Raphael had taken the day off work. Maria beside him. Miguel and David had driven down from Madison. Elena had flown in from New York, still wearing her chef's coat under a hastily borrowed blazer. 5 of my children, present, watching, fighting for me, in the only way they could, by showing up. Marco sat on the opposite side, next to Diane. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Judge Patricia Okonkwo, no relation to my attorney, called the proceedings to order. She was a black woman in her 60s, with reading glasses perched on her nose, and a no-nonsense expression that reminded me of my grandmother. This hearing will determine whether Rosa Maria Delgado possesses the mental capacity to manage her financial and personal affairs, she announced. Mr. Croft, you may present your case. Harrison Croft stood, buttoning his jacket. Your Honor, we will demonstrate that Mrs. Delgado has exhibited a pattern of erratic behavior consistent with cognitive decline. She sold a business worth over $2 million without consulting her family. She relocated to an isolated property without informing anyone. She has made accusations of financial impropriety against her own son without evidence. Rebecca's hand touched my arm. Stay calm. Croft called his first witness, Dr. Sandra Mitchell, the geriatric specialist whose report Diane had waved in my face at the cottage. Dr. Mitchell was a thin woman with a tight smile. Under Croft's questioning, she testified that based on provided documentation, she believed I showed signs of early-stage cognitive impairment. Rebecca's cross-examination was surgical. Dr. Mitchell, have you ever met Mrs. Delgado in person? No. But Have you conducted any cognitive tests on her directly? The documentation was sufficient to. Yes or no, doctor? Have you reviewed her medical records from her actual physician? I was not provided with. So your diagnosis is based entirely on information supplied by the petitioner's attorney. Is that correct? Dr. Mitchell's face reddened. The information was comprehensive, but not verified. Rebecca turned to the judge. Your Honor, I move to strike Dr. Mitchell's testimony as speculative and lacking foundation. Granted. Judge Okonkwo's voice was flat. Mr. Croft, do you have any witnesses who have actually examined the respondent? Croft's confidence flickered. We call Marco Delgado. My son walked to the witness stand. He still wouldn't look at me. Under Croft's questioning, Marco painted a picture of a confused old woman. She forgot appointments. She repeated herself. She became paranoid, accusing family members of stealing. Did you observe any specific incidents of memory loss? Marco hesitated. She left the stove on once. At my house. And this concerned you? Very much. That's when Diane and I started discussing options. Rebecca rose for cross-examination. Mr. Delgado, you testified that your mother left a stove on. Once. In 3 years of living in your home. Have you ever left a stove on? Marco blinked. That's different, is it? You also testified she forgot appointments. Can you name a specific appointment she missed? Silence. Mr. Delgado, isn't it true that during those 3 years, your mother cooked every meal for your family, managed your household schedule, and cared for your teenage children after school? She helped out. Yes, helped out. Rebecca picked up a document. I have here a calendar. Your mother maintained detailed records of your children's activities, your wife's meetings, your business dinners. 17 months of meticulous notes. Does this look like the work of someone with cognitive decline? She handed the calendar to the judge, then turned back to Marco. One more question, Mr. Delgado. During the 3 years your mother lived in your garage, did you ever even once invite her to eat dinner at your table? Marco's face went pale. The courtroom was silent. We were busy. Yes or no? Rebecca sat down. The damage was done. Croft called Diane next, but her testimony was worse. Under cross-examination, Rebecca produced the evidence. Maria had gathered the forged credit applications, the unauthorized transfers, the fake Medicare claims. Diane stammered, deflected, blamed misunderstandings. By the time Rebecca finished, Diane looked less like a concerned daughter-in-law and more like what she was, a thief in a designer suit. Finally, Rebecca called me to the stand. Mrs. Delgado, can you tell the court about your professional background? I spoke clearly, looking directly at the judge. I owned and operated Delgado's Bakery in Chicago for 45 years. I managed inventory, payroll, vendor relationships, and daily operations. I negotiated the sale of that business 2 years ago for $2.1 million. Reviewing every contract personally. Can you describe the terms of that sale? I did in detail. Purchase price, earn-out provisions, non-compete clauses, transition timeline. Rebecca had coached me, but the knowledge was mine. I'd lived it. Mrs. Delgado, can you recite your social security number? I did. Your 7 children's birthdays, in order? Marco, August 3rd, 1980. Carmen, February 14th, 1982. Lucia, September 9th, 1985. Raphael, December 1st, 1988. Elena, March 21. 1991. Miguel, July 4th, 1994. Sophia, November 30th, 1998. Your late husband's birthday? October 17th, 1950. He would have been 75 this year. Rebecca smiled. One final question. Can you recite the recipe for your famous tres leches cake? I smiled back. 2 cups flour, 1.5 teaspoons baking powder, 5 eggs separated, 1 cup sugar, 1/3 cup whole milk, 1 teaspoon vanilla. For the 3 milks, 1 can evaporated, 1 can sweetened, condensed, 1 cup heavy cream. For the topping, I think that's sufficient. Rebecca turned to the judge. Your Honor, Mrs. Delgado has demonstrated clear memory, detailed knowledge of complex financial transactions, and the ability to articulate her own wishes. There is no evidence, none, that she lacks capacity. Judge Okonkwo removed her glasses. She looked at Diane, then at Marco. Case dismissed, she said. Mrs. Delgado is fully competent to manage her affairs. Furthermore, the evidence presented raises serious concerns about potential financial exploitation. I'm referring this matter to the district attorney for further investigation. Diane's face went white. Marco slumped in his chair. I stood, gathered my purse, and walked past my eldest son without a word. Outside the courthouse, my 5 children surrounded me. Sophia was crying. Raphael kept saying, "That's my mom," to anyone who would listen. Elena hugged me so tight I couldn't breathe. It's not over, Rebecca warned. The DA investigation will take months, and we still need Marco and Carmen for Christmas Eve. I looked back at the courthouse doors. Marco stood there alone. Diane had already fled to their car. He looked smaller, somehow, defeated. Give him time, I said. He just watched his mother win. Maybe that's the lesson he needed. The months between the trial and Christmas Eve passed like bread, rising slowly at first. Then, all at once, my 5 willing children came to Wisconsin one by one, each carrying their own burdens, their own confessions, their own hunger to be forgiven. Lucia arrived in September. She came alone, without her kids, which told me everything. She needed to say something she couldn't say in front of them. We sat on the porch with coffee, watching the leaves begin to turn. For 20 minutes, she said nothing. Then, quietly, I knew, Mama, about Marco, about the money. I didn't respond. I let her speak. He told me a year ago. Said it was just loans, that he'd pay it back. I believed him because I wanted to believe him, because it was easier than fighting. Her voice cracked. I'm so sorry. I should have warned you. I should have. Why didn't you? She wiped her eyes. Because I was afraid. Afraid Marco would turn on me. Afraid I'd lose what little family I had left. After Daniel left, I felt so alone. I couldn't risk losing anyone else. I reached over and took her hand. You didn't lose me, Mija. You never could. How can you forgive me? Because forgiveness isn't about what you deserve. It's about what I choose to give. I squeezed her fingers. Your father understood that. It's why he designed the trust the way he did. He wanted you all to earn your way back, not through money, but through showing up. Lucia stayed 3 days. By the time she left, something had shifted between us. Not healed completely. Some wounds take longer, but the bleeding had stopped. Raphael came in October with the whole family. Maria had been avoiding me since her midnight confession. I understood she'd betrayed her husband's brother to protect me, and that kind of courage leaves scars. But when she walked through my door carrying baby Diego, I pulled her into my arms and whispered, "Thank you." She cried. I cried. Raphael stood in the doorway looking confused until Maria finally told him the truth, all of it. I expected him to explode. Instead, he went quiet. Dangerously quiet. I'm going to kill Marco, he said. No, mijo. You're going to bake bread with him. How can you ask me to? Because your father asked. Because I'm asking. Because revenge is easy, but family is hard. And hard things are the only things worth doing. That night, Raphael's children helped me make conchas. Little Antonio, 7 years old, stood on a step stool, and pressed the shell patterns into the dough with chubby fingers. Like this, abuela? Perfect, mi amor. Just like that. I looked at Rafael, watching his son learn what he'd learned 30 years ago in our bakery kitchen. His eyes were wet. Okay, Ma, he said quietly. I'll bake with Marco, but I'm not promising I won't punch him first. Elena flew in the same week. She arrived with notebooks and spreadsheets, already planning. 1,000 loaves in 18 hours, she said, spreading papers across my kitchen table. We need a commercial kitchen, industrial mixers, proof boxes. I found a space in Madison, an old bakery that closed last year. Owners willing to rent it for the day. How much? Doesn't matter. I'm paying. She looked up at me. Consider it back rent for all the years I didn't come home. Elena had always been the hardest to read. The most talented, the most ambitious, the most determined to escape the shadow of Delgado's bakery. But that night, after the planning was done, she asked me to teach her my concha recipe. You know how to make conchas, I said. You were better than me by 16. I know your recipe. I don't know. She struggled for words. I don't know how you put yourself into them. How you make them taste like love instead of just flour. We baked until midnight, side by side, like we hadn't been since she was a teenager. And somewhere between the mixing and the kneading and the shaping, she started crying. I didn't hate the bakery, Mama. I loved it too much. I was afraid if I stayed, I'd never be anything but your daughter. I needed to prove I could stand alone. And can you? She looked at the conchas cooling on the rack, perfect shells, golden brown. I don't know anymore. I've been standing alone for 10 years. I'm tired of it. Miguel and David came in November. They brought music. Literally, Miguel's guitar, David's portable speaker, a playlist they'd made called Delgado Family Christmas Eve Baking Soundtrack. It's scientifically proven, David said, that people work better with the right music. I did research. I laughed, the first real laugh I'd had in weeks. Miguel was quieter. He'd always been the peacemaker, the one who smoothed over conflicts and avoided confrontations. But that night, after David went to bed, he sat with me by the fire. Mom, can I ask you something? Anything. Do you think Dad would have been okay with me? With David? My heart broke a little. Even now, after everything, my gentle son still wondered if his father had truly accepted him. Miguel, your father cried when you came out. Do you remember? I remember. I thought he was disappointed. He cried because he was afraid the world would hurt you, not because he was ashamed. I took his hand. 2 weeks before he died, he told me he wanted to walk you down the aisle. He said, Rosa, that boy has more love in his heart than all his siblings combined. Whoever he marries will be lucky. Man hundred stan. Ever the marriages. Miguel's tears fell freely. He said that? He said that. And he was right. Sophia was there through all of it. She'd taken a leave of absence from work to help coordinate the logistics, the legal issues, the endless phone calls with Rebecca about Diane's appeals. She was exhausted, running on coffee and stubbornness. One night, I found her on the porch at 2 a.m., staring at the stars. You should sleep, Mija. Can't. She didn't look at me. Every time I close my eyes, I see all the ways this could fall apart. Marco won't come. Carmen won't come. The bread won't rise. The shelter won't. Sophia. I sat beside her. Your father planned for 40 years. I've been baking for 45. Your siblings have committed. Whatever happens on Christmas Eve, we will face it together. But what if it's not enough? I thought about Antonio's letter, about the test he'd designed, about what he really wanted. The bread was never the point, I said softly. The trust was never about money. Your father wanted to know if this family could still choose each other. 5 of you already have. That's not failure. That's a miracle. Sophia finally looked at me. And Marco and Carmen? I watched the stars, the same stars Antonio and I had watched on our first night in this cottage, 20 years ago. They have until Christmas Eve to decide who they want to be, I said. All we can do is leave the door open. Somewhere across the lake, a loon called into the darkness. We sat together, mother and daughter, waiting for dawn. The call came on December 15th, 9 days before Christmas Eve. I was in the kitchen making pozole Antonio's favorite, the recipe I hadn't touched since he died when my phone buzzed. Carmen's name on the screen, my eldest daughter, who hadn't called me directly in over a year. I wiped my hands and answered. Carmen? Silence. Then a sound I hadn't heard since she was a child. My daughter sobbing. Mama. Her voice was broken, barely recognizable. Mama, I made a terrible mistake. I turned off the stove, sat down at the table. Tell me. It came out in fragments, jagged pieces of a life falling apart. Bradley, an affair, a woman from his golf club, 28 years old, blonde, the kind of woman Carmen had spent 15 years trying to become. He's been seeing her for 2 years. Carmen gasped. 2 years, Mama, while I was skipping your calls, missing Dad's funeral reception. Choosing his family over mine, he was sleeping with someone else. I closed my eyes. Part of me wanted to say I told you so. Part of me wanted to remind her of every warning I'd given about Bradley Mitchell. Every time I'd seen the coldness in his eyes when he looked at our family. But she was my daughter, and she was drowning. Where are you now? I asked. A hotel. In Atlanta. I couldn't stay in that house. Everything in it is a lie. She choked on another sob. The Christmas trip to Aspen? He was taking her. He told me this morning, said he wanted a divorce, and that I should be reasonable about the assets. Reasonable. As if my daughter's heart was an asset to be divided. Carmen, listen to me. Are you safe? I'm safe. I'm just... She trailed off. I'm so stupid, Mama. I gave up everything for him. My name, my family, you. And he threw me away, like I was nothing. You are not nothing. You have never been nothing. Then why do I feel like I don't exist anymore? I thought about the girl Carmen used to be. 8 years old, covered in flour, swearing she'd run the bakery someday. 12 years old, making her father's birthday cake entirely by herself. 16 years old, choosing Northwestern over staying close to home. Already planning her escape from Pilsen. She'd spent her whole adult life running from who she was. And now, with nothing left to run toward, she had nowhere to go. Come home, I said. Home? She laughed bitterly. I don't have a home. Bradley kept the house. I kept nothing. You have a home. You've always had a home. I looked out the window at the Wisconsin lake, gray under December clouds. There's a cottage here with a bed and a kitchen and a mother who's been waiting for you to remember where you came from. Silence on the line. I could hear her breathing, ragged, uncertain. I can't, Mama. After everything I did, the way I treated you. I didn't even come to Dad's funeral on time. I chose Bradley's golf tournament over. Her voice cracked again. How can you want me back after that? Because you're my daughter. Because I've been making pozole all morning, and there's too much for one person. Because your father designed a trust that requires all 7 of his children. And he believed, even when I didn't, that you would find your way back. The trust. Carmen's voice steadied slightly. The 1,000 loaves. Christmas Eve. 9 days away. I told you I'd decide by Thanksgiving. I never called. I noticed. Another silence. Longer this time. Bradley said it was manipulation. Carmen finally said, the trust, the conditions. He said Dad was controlling us from the grave, and I shouldn't participate on principle. And what do you think? She didn't answer right away. I waited. Outside, snow began to fall. The first real snow of the season. Soft and quiet. I think, Carmen said slowly, that Dad knew exactly what he was doing. He knew I was lost. He knew I'd chosen the wrong life. And he gave me a way back, but only if I was brave enough to take it. Are you? I don't know. I'm scared, Mama. I don't know how to bake anymore. I don't know how to be part of this family anymore. I've been Carmen Mitchell for so long, I've forgotten how to be Carmen Delgado. I smiled despite myself. Delgado is still your name, Mija. You just stopped using it. Names don't forget us, even when we forget them. What if the others don't want me there? What if Rafael will be angry? So will Sophia. They have a right to be. I paused. But they also have the capacity to forgive. That's what your father was counting on. Not perfection forgiveness. Carmen took a shaky breath. I need to book a flight. Sophia can pick you up from the airport. Just tell her when. Mama? Her voice was small now, like the girl she used to be. I'm sorry. For all of it. For who I became. I know, Mija. We'll talk more when you're here. Right now, just come home. After we hung up, I sat at the table for a long time. The pozole had gone cold. The snow kept falling, and somewhere in Atlanta, my lost daughter was packing a suitcase and buying a ticket to a life she'd abandoned 20 years ago. 6 children. Six yeses. Only Marco remained. I called Sophia that evening. Carmen's coming. December 20th. Sophia was quiet for a moment. How do you feel about that? Relieved. Sad. Hopeful. I watched the snow accumulate on the windowsill. She's broken. Sophia. Bradley destroyed something in her. It's going to take more than bread to fix it. But it's a start? It's a start. What about Marco? I thought about my eldest son. The boy who said pan before mama. The man who let his wife steal from his own mother. The face I'd seen in the courtroom. Shame and fear. And something that might have been regret. Marco has 4 days to decide, I said. After that, it's out of my hands. And if he doesn't come, I looked at Antonio's photograph on the mantel. His eyes, frozen in time, seemed to hold an answer I couldn't quite read. Then the trust fails. The money goes to the shelter, and Marco loses his family forever. I took a breath, but I'm not giving up on him yet. His father never gave up on anyone. Neither will I. 4 days. 6 children ready. 1 son still lost. The snow kept falling, covering everything in white. December 23rd, 6 p.m. The longest night of baking began. Elena had found us a commercial kitchen in Madison, an old Italian bakery called Rosario's that had closed the previous spring. The owner, a 73-year-old man named Giuseppe, had refused payment when he heard what we were doing. For the homeless, on Christmas Eve, he said, "My Maria would haunt me if I charged you a penny." The space was perfect. 6 industrial mixers, 2 proof boxes, 4 commercial ovens that could handle 20 loaves each, stainless steel counters stretching the length of the room, and hanging on the wall, faded but still visible, a sign that read, "Good bread takes time. Great bread takes love." Antonio would have approved. By 6:15 p.m., my family had assembled. Elena stood at the center, clipboard in hand, chef's whites pristine. Rafael rolled up his sleeves, ready for labor. Lucia tied her hair back with the same nervous energy she'd had as a girl. Miguel set up speakers in the corner, David's carefully curated playlist ready to go. Sophia organized ingredients: 500 pounds of flour, 30 pounds of yeast, 20 gallons of water, salt, sugar, oil, and Carmen, my lost daughter, arrived 3 days ago, stood apart from the others. She'd barely spoken since landing in Wisconsin. The siblings had been polite, but distant wounds don't heal in 72 hours. But she was here. That was what mattered. "All right," Elena announced. 1,000 loaves, 18 hours. Here's the plan. She divided us into stations: mixing, kneading, shaping, proofing, baking, cooling, packing. Each station required precision. Timing dough needed to rise twice. Ovens needed constant rotation. And we couldn't afford a single batch to fail. "We work in shifts," Elena continued. 3 hours on, 30 minutes off. Nobody's a hero. If you're tired, you rest. A mistake at 3 a.m. costs us 50 loaves. Raphael cracked his knuckles. Let's do this. The first hours were chaos. Miguel's music helped cumbia and oldies, and the occasional Christmas song that made Lucia laugh despite herself. But the work was brutal. My hands remembered the motions mix, knead, fold, shape, but my body had forgotten the endurance required. By 9 p.m., my back screamed. By 10 p.m., my fingers cramped around the dough. Sophia noticed. Mom, take a break. I'm fine. You're not fine. Sit down. Drink water. We've got this. I wanted to argue. Instead, I watched. My children worked together. For the first time in years, maybe decades, they moved as a unit. Raphael hauled 50-pound flour bags like they weighed nothing. Elena barked orders that everyone followed without complaint. Miguel kept spirits high with jokes and songs. Lucia counted loaves with quiet precision. Sophia ran between stations, solving problems before they became crises. And Carmen slowly, hesitantly began to remember. I saw it happen around 11 p.m. She'd been assigned to shaping, the station requiring the most delicate touch. For hours, her loaves had been uneven, lopsided, the work of hands that had forgotten their training. Her shoulders relaxed, her movements became fluid, and when she pulled a perfectly shaped round from the counter, she looked up with tears in her eyes. I remember, she whispered. Mama, I remember. By midnight, we'd completed 400 loaves, 600 to go. Then the door opened. We all froze. Raphael's hands clenched into fists. Sophia stepped in front of me instinctively, standing in the doorway, snow dusting her designer coat. Mascara running down her cheeks. Was Diane. Alone. What are you doing here? Raphael's voice was ice. Diane didn't answer him. She looked at me, only me, with an expression I'd never seen on her face before. Defeat. Exhaustion. Something that might have been shame. Marco's not coming. The words hit like a physical blow. Around me, I felt my children deflate. 600 loaves to go. 17 hours of work. And now, he filed for divorce this morning, Diane continued. We've been fighting since the trial. He blames me for everything, the fraud, the lawsuit, losing the family. She laughed bitterly. He's not wrong. Sophia stepped forward. So, why are you here? Diane's eyes dropped to the floor. Because I destroyed something I didn't understand. I saw Rosa as an obstacle, not a person. I saw the money as mine to take, not hers to give. She took a shaky breath. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it. She trailed off. The kitchen was silent, except for the hum of ovens. You just what? I asked. Diane looked up. For the first time since I'd met her, she looked human. I want to help. I can't fix what I broke, but I can knead dough. I can wash dishes. I can do something, anything, that isn't destroying. Raphael exploded. You think you can just walk in here after? Raphael. My voice stopped him. Enough. I walked toward Diane. My children parted to let me pass. I stopped 3 feet from the woman who had tried to steal my money, my freedom, my dignity. Why should I trust you? I asked. You shouldn't. Diane's voice cracked. But I'm here anyway, and I'll stay until you tell me to leave. I studied her face, searching for the lie, the angle, the hidden agenda. I'd been watching people for 45 years, customers, vendors, children who swore they hadn't stolen cookies from the display case. I knew deception when I saw it. I didn't see it now. I reached behind me and grabbed a spare apron from the hook. White cotton, flour dusted, the same style I'd worn for 45 years. I held it out to Diane. Wash your hands, I said. The dough won't wait. The kitchen erupted in protests. Raphael grabbed my arm. Ma, you can't be serious. She's not a Delgado, I said calmly. She can't fulfill the trust condition, but she can help us bake. And right now, we need hands more than grudges. Diane took the apron with trembling fingers. She looked at me like I'd handed her something precious. Maybe I had. "Thank you," she whispered. "Don't thank me. Work." I turned to my children. We have 600 loaves to finish, and a son who's still out there somewhere. This isn't over until midnight tomorrow. So move. The kitchen came back to life. Mixers whirred, ovens roared, and somewhere in the chaos, Diane tied on her apron and began to knead. I looked at the clock. 12:47 a.m. Christmas Eve had begun. Marco was still missing. The condition was still unmet. But for the first time, I felt something I hadn't allowed myself to feel in months. Hope. By 3 a.m., Diane's hands were raw. She wasn't used to this kind of work, the endless kneading, the rough texture of flour against skin, the ache that settles into your shoulders and doesn't leave. But she didn't complain, not once. She just kept working, station after station, doing whatever Elena told her to do. I watched her from across the kitchen. My children watched too, with suspicion, with anger, with something that might have been reluctant respect. Raphael hadn't spoken a word to her. Sophia kept her distance. But Carmen, surprisingly, had started working beside her at the shaping station. Two broken women, side by side, making bread. At 3:30 a.m., Elena called a mandatory break. 30 minutes. Everyone. No exceptions. The kitchen emptied slowly. Miguel and David collapsed onto flour sacks in the corner. Lucia called her kids. They were staying with a neighbor to say goodnight. Raphael stepped outside to smoke a cigarette. He swore he'd quit years ago. Diane stayed at her station. Still kneading. Still working. Undo. Still working. Still kneading. I poured 2 cups of coffee and walked over to her. "Break means break," I said, holding out a cup. She took it with flour-covered fingers. "I'm afraid if I stop, I'll think too much." "About Marco?" She nodded. "About everything." I sat on a stool beside her. The kitchen was quiet now, just the hum of proof boxes and the distant sound of Miguel's playlist turned low. "Why did you do it?" I asked. "The stealing, the fraud, the lies." Diane stared into her coffee. For a long moment, I thought she wouldn't answer. "I grew up poor," she finally said. "Not bakery poor, real poor. Food stamps, eviction notices, a father who drank, and a mother who worked 3 jobs and still couldn't keep the lights on." She took a shaky breath. "I swore I'd never be poor again." I clawed my way through law school, married into a good family, built a life that looked perfect from the outside, but it wasn't perfect. No, it was empty. She laughed bitterly. Marco was supposed to be my security. His family, his connections, his future inheritance. When I found out about your money, the bakery sale, Antonio's investments, I saw a shortcut, a way to guarantee I'd never be that hungry little girl again. "So you stole from an old woman," Diane flinched. I told myself it wasn't stealing, that you didn't need it, that you'd never notice. She met my eyes. I was wrong, about all of it. I sipped my coffee, let the silence stretch. "My grandmother used to say something," I said. She'd say, "El pan no miente." Bread doesn't lie. You can hide your intentions, your greed, your fear, but the dough knows. If your heart is wrong, the bread won't rise. Diane looked down at her hands, cracked, red, covered in flour. "Does my bread rise?" she asked quietly. I glanced at the proof box beside us. Inside, rows of dough balls were swelling slowly, steadily, the way good bread should. "It's rising," I said. "Whether that means anything, only you can decide." The break ended. Everyone returned to their stations, but something had shifted between Diane and me. Not forgiveness, not yet, but understanding. The first crack in a wall that had seemed unbreakable. By 6 a.m., we'd crossed 600 loaves. By 9 700 pięćdziesiąt. By noon, with everyone exhausted and running on fumes, Elena announced, 850. 150 to go. We were going to make it. But Marco was still missing. Lucia had called him 17 times. Raphael had driven to the Naperville house at 4 a.m. empty, no cars in the driveway. Sophia had contacted every hotel in a 50-mile radius. Nothing. The trust required all 7 children. Without Marco, the condition would fail. The $1.5 million would go to Street Michaels, regardless of how many loaves we baked. At 2 p.m., I gathered everyone in the center of the kitchen. We have 4 hours until delivery, I said. 150 loaves to finish. And Marco isn't coming. The words hung in the air. Raphael kicked a flour bag. Carmen started crying. Miguel held David's hand like it was the only thing keeping him standing. What do we do, Mama? Sophia asked. I looked at my children exhausted, flour-covered, united for the first time in years. I looked at Diane, standing apart, apron stained with 18 hours of work she'd never done before. I looked at the bread, 850 loaves, cooling on racks, waiting to feed people who had nothing. We finish, I said. We bake the last 150 loaves. We load the vans. We drive to Street Michaels, and we deliver every single loaf to people who are hungry tonight. But the condition, Lucia began. The condition was your father's test. But the bread, I picked up a warm loaf from the nearest rack. The bread was never about money. It was about remembering who we are, what we do, what this family has done every Christmas Eve for 43 years. I broke the loaf in half. Steam rose into the air, carrying that smell, the smell of my childhood, my marriage, my life's work. We are Delgados, I said. We feed people. We show up. We don't quit because the reward is gone. We do it because it's right. Elena was the first to move. She walked back to her station, picked up a ball of dough, and started shaping. Raphael followed. Then Miguel. Then Lucia. Carmen. Sophia. And finally, Diane. By 5 p.m., we had 1,000 loaves. Packed in boxes. Loaded into 3 rented vans. It's time, Elena said. I looked at my family one last time. 6 children. 1 unexpected helper. 0 guarantees. Let's go feed some people, I said. We pulled out of Rosario's parking lot at 5:15 p.m. street. Michael's shelter was 45 minutes away. The sun was setting, painting the snow orange and gold. Somewhere out there, my eldest son was missing. The trust would fail. The money would go to charity anyway. But we had bread. We had each other. And for the first time in years, that felt like enough. Then my phone rang. Lucia, driving the van behind me, her voice crackling through the speaker. Mom, Mom, look, behind us. I turned. Through the rear window, I saw headlights, a single car, speeding to catch up, a BMW. The BMW pulled alongside our van at a red light. Marco sat behind the wheel, alone, unshaven, eyes red from what looked like days without sleep. He rolled down his window. Mom, he said. Just that. Just my name. I rolled down mine. You're late. I know. His voice cracked. I've been driving for 6 hours. I didn't know if he stopped. Swallowed. Is there still time? I looked at the clock on the dashboard. 5:23 p.m. Street Michaels was 40 minutes away. The shelter served dinner at 6:30. We needed to arrive by 6 to unload. Follow us, I said. Don't stop until we get there. The light turned green. 3 vans and 1 BMW. Caravan through the Wisconsin snow. Sophia called from the van behind me. Mom, was that? It was. Is he? He's coming. That's all I know. We arrived at Street Michael's homeless shelter at 5:47 p.m. The building was a converted warehouse on Madison's east side. Brick walls, steamed windows, a hand-painted sign that read, "All are welcome here." Father Thomas, the shelter director, met us in the parking lot. He was a round man in his 60s, with a beard that made him look like Santa Claus in a clerical collar. "Rosa Delgado," he said, embracing me. 43 years of bread. I was starting to worry. You'd finally retired. Not yet, Father. Not yet. The unloading began. 1,000 loaves, carried inside by 14 hands, my 7 children, their spouses, Diane, and me. We formed a human chain from van to kitchen, passing boxes down the line, each loaf still warm from the oven. Marco worked in silence. He didn't look at his siblings. They didn't look at him, but they passed bread to each other, hand to hand, the way they'd done as children in our bakery kitchen. By 6:15 p.m., the last box was inside. Father Thomas surveyed the mountain of bread, with tears in his eyes. "This will feed 300 people tonight," he said, "and leftovers for a week. Rosa, I don't know how to thank you. Don't thank me." I turned to my children, standing in a loose semicircle behind me. Thank them. 7 faces, 7 different expressions: exhaustion, uncertainty, hope, fear. Marco stepped forward. His hands were shaking. "I need to say something," he said. Raphael tensed. Sophia crossed her arms, but no one interrupted. I was wrong. Marco's voice was barely above a whisper. About everything. The money, the fraud, the way I treated Mom, the way I let Diane. He stopped, glancing at his soon-to-be ex-wife. The way I let myself become someone Dad would be ashamed of. He looked at me. For the first time in years, I saw my son. Not the businessman, not the thief, not the stranger who'd let me live in his garage. Just Marco, the boy who said Pan before Mama. "I don't expect forgiveness," he said. "I haven't earned it, but I'm here, and I want to try." Silence. The shelter kitchen hummed around us. Somewhere, volunteers were setting tables for 300 guests. Raphael moved first. He crossed the distance between them in 3 steps, and for a moment, I thought he was going to throw a punch. Instead, he pulled his brother into a hug. "You're an idiot," Raphael said into Marco's shoulder. "But you're my idiot." One by one, the others followed. Lucia, crying. Elena, stiff but present. Miguel, wrapping his arms around as many siblings as he could reach. Carmen, hesitant, then fierce. Sophia, the last holdout, finally stepping forward with a single word. "Don't do it again." I watched my children embrace. 7 bodies, tangled together, holding each other up the way families are supposed to. "Antonio," I thought. "Are you watching this?" Father Thomas cleared his throat. "Rosa, I hate to interrupt, but the trust. The attorney called earlier. He needs confirmation that all 7 children participated." I pulled out my phone. Gerald Patterson answered on the first ring. "Mr. Patterson, this is Rosa Delgado. All 7 of my children are present at Street Michael's shelter. They have baked and delivered 1,000 loaves of bread together, as Antonio's trust required." "All 7? I'll need verification." Father Thomas can confirm. So can I. So can the security cameras in this building. I looked at my family. The condition has been met. A pause on the line. Then, "Congratulations, Mrs. Delgado. I'll begin processing the distribution immediately. Each child will receive their share within 60 days. I hung up, turned to my children. "It's done," I said. "The trust is fulfilled." No one cheered. The money, somehow, didn't feel like the point anymore. We stayed for dinner. Not as donors, as guests. We sat at long tables beside people who had nothing, eating bread we'd made with our own hands, sharing soup ladled by volunteers who didn't know our story and didn't need to. Marco sat between Raphael and Carmen. Diane sat alone at the end of the table. Not quite family, but not quite excluded. Miguel led a group of children in Christmas carols. Elena talked recipes with the shelter's cook. Sophia held a baby whose mother had fallen asleep in her chair. At 8 p.m., we drove back to Wisconsin in a caravan of exhausted silence. At my cottage, I made coffee and heated leftover tamales. We crowded into the small living room, 12 adults, some on furniture, some on the floor, and watched the fire burn. "Mom," Carmen said quietly, "what happens now?" I thought about the year behind us, the theft, the trial, the broken relationships slowly being rebuilt, the son who almost didn't come, the daughter who almost stayed, lost. "Now," I said, "we eat, we rest, and tomorrow we start learning how to be a family again." "Is that possible?" Marco asked. After everything, I looked at him. At all of them. "Your father thought so," I said. "He designed this test because he believed you could pass it not just tonight, but every day after. The bread was practice. The real work starts now." Outside, snow began to fall. Inside, my children passed tamales and poured coffee and argued about who got the last concha. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't healed, but it was family. And for tonight, that was enough. Christmas morning came quietly. I woke at 5 a.m. Old habits die hard, and found snow still falling outside the cottage window. The living room was a landscape of sleeping bodies. Miguel and David on the pull-out couch, Carmen curled in the armchair, Raphael and Maria on an air mattress with the baby between them. The others had taken bedrooms, doubling up like they used to when they were children. I made coffee. The smell drifted through the cottage, and slowly, one by one, my family began to stir. By 7 a.m., everyone was awake, exhausted, sore, still wearing yesterday's flour-dusted clothes, but awake. Sophia had brought groceries the day before, so I made breakfast. Huevos rancheros, fresh tortillas, the chorizo I'd been saving for a special occasion. We ate in shifts, standing in the kitchen, sitting on the floor, passing plates over sleeping children. It wasn't elegant. It was perfect. After breakfast, I gathered everyone in the living room. "There's one more thing," I said. "Something your father left." I retrieved Antonio's wooden box from my bedroom. Inside, beneath the trust documents and our wedding photo, were 7 smaller envelopes, cream-colored, sealed with wax, each one bearing a name in Antonio's careful handwriting. My children stared at the envelopes like they were holy relics. "He wrote these 3 months before he died," I said. "One for each of you. He asked me to give them out after the trust was settled, when you'd proven you could still be a family." I handed them out one by one. "Marco, Carmen, Lucia, Rafael, Elena, Miguel, Sophia. Read them privately," I said. "Or together. That's your choice. But read them." The room fell silent. Then, without discussion, they scattered to bedrooms, to the porch, to corners of the house where they could be alone with their father's final words. I stayed in the living room. I'd already read my letter, the night Father Diego brought the box, but I remembered every word. An hour passed, then 2. Raphael came back first. His eyes were red, his jaw tight, but there was something softer in his face than I'd seen in years. "He knew," Raphael said. "Dad knew I was angry all the time," he said. His voice broke. He said anger is just love with nowhere to go. He told me to find somewhere to put it. I nodded. "Your father was very wise. He also said I should stop smoking." Raphael laughed through his tears, said he'd haunt me if I didn't. Lucia came next. She was openly crying, letter clutched to her chest. "He said he forgave me," she whispered, "for being invisible, for never speaking up. He said silence isn't peace, and I deserve to be heard." She looked at me. Did you tell him to write that? No, Mija. That was all him. Elena returned from the porch, snowflakes in her hair. She didn't speak, just walked over and hugged me. Tight, fierce. The way she used to hug me when she was small. He said he was proud of me, she finally said. For leaving, for building my own thing. He said the bakery was his dream, not mine, and I had every right to chase something different. Miguel came back holding David's hand. Both of them had been crying. He wrote about our wedding, Miguel said. The one he never got to see. He said he had to stop, compose himself. He said, love is the only bread that never runs out, and that David was family the moment I chose him. David squeezed his hand. I wish I'd met him. He knew you, I said. Through Miguel, he knew everything. Carmen appeared in the doorway, mascara ruined, letter crumpled in her fist. He called me out, she said. Every lie I told myself. Every time I chose Bradley over family. Every time I was ashamed of where I came from. She laughed bitterly. Then he said he understood. Because fear makes cowards of us all. And the bravest thing anyone can do is come home. She looked at me. He wrote that I would come home, that I would find my way back. 3 years ago, he knew. Your father knew his children, I said simply. Sophia was the last to return. Eyes dry, but face pale. He apologized to me, she said, for putting too much on me, for making me the fighter, the protector, the one who always had to be strong. Her voice shook. He said, I was allowed to be soft sometimes, that I didn't have to save everyone. That saving myself counted too. 6 children, 6 letters, 6 different messages, tailored to wounds Antonio had watched form over decades. Then Marco walked in. He stood in the doorway, letter hanging at his side, looking like a man who'd just been dismantled and rebuilt from the inside out. What did he say? Raphael asked gently, not challenging. Marco opened his mouth, closed it, tried again. He said he saw me. Marco's voice was raw. When I was 8 years old, practicing signatures because I wanted mine to look like his. When I was 16, studying business books in the bakery kitchen. When I was 30, working 80-hour weeks, trying to prove I was worth something. He looked at me. He said I was always worth something, that I didn't have to steal it, that all I ever had to do was ask. The room was silent. Snow fell outside. Inside, 7 children held 7 letters from a father who had known them better than they knew themselves. There's one more thing, I said. I reached into the box and pulled out a final envelope. This one wasn't addressed to any child. It was addressed to all of them, to my children. After they've proven they're still a family. I handed it to Sophia. Read it aloud. She broke the seal. Her hands trembled as she unfolded the paper. My dear children, if you're reading this together, then you've passed my test. Not the bread was just practice. The real test was choosing each other when it would have been easier to walk away. I am proud of you. All of you. Even the ones who needed to fail before they could succeed. Your mother has something else for you now. A gift I prepared but only she can give. Listen to her. Trust her. She has always been the best of us. With all my love. Now and forever. Sophia looked at me. I smiled. The $200,000 reserve fund. The one I control. 7 faces stared at me. I've decided to distribute it. Not equally, but according to what each of you needs. I met each child's eyes in turn. We'll discuss the details later. But today, we just rest. We've earned it. No one asked how much they'd get. No one argued. They just sat together, holding their father's letters, watching the snow fall on Christmas morning. Antonio's presence filled the room like bread filling an oven, warm, nourishing, impossible to ignore. We did it, mi amor, I thought. They came home. Christmas Eve, 1 year later. I stood at the window of my Wisconsin cottage, watching cars pull into the driveway one by one. Snow was falling again, softer this year, gentler, like the world had learned to be kind. A lot can change in 12 months. Marco arrived first, driving a Honda Civic instead of his BMW. He'd sold the luxury car 6 months ago, along with the Naperville house and most of what he'd built during his years with Diane. The divorce finalized in March. The DA investigation ended with a plea deal. Full restitution of the $180,000, 200 hours of community service, and 5 years of probation. No prison time. But his real estate license was suspended indefinitely. He'd moved to a small apartment in Milwaukee. Got a job managing properties for a non-profit that provided housing for formerly homeless families. The pay was a third of what he used to make. "I'm learning to build things that matter," he told me last month. Instead of just things that sell, he still had a long way to go. Raphael still flinched when Marco reached for a hug. Sophia still watched him with suspicious eyes. But he showed up. Every Sunday dinner, every family call, every time I needed something fixed in the cottage. Showing up is how forgiveness starts. Carmen pulled in behind him, her rental car packed with suitcases. She'd sold the Atlanta house in February. Bradley got nothing, thanks to the prenup his own lawyers had insisted on. She was living in Milwaukee now, 2 blocks from Lucia, working as a real estate agent specializing in first-time home buyers. "I spent 15 years helping rich people get richer," she told me. "Now I help regular people find a place to call home. Turns out, that feels better." She'd started using Delgado again. On her business cards, her email signature, her office door. Carmen Delgado, helping families find home. The first time I saw it, I cried. Lucia arrived next, kids tumbling out of her minivan like puppies. Sophia, named after her aunt, was 13 now, all legs and attitude. Her brother, Daniel Jr., was 10. Quiet and bookish, like his father used to be, before he became someone else. Lucia had been promoted to assistant principal at her school. She'd also started speaking up at PTA meetings, in staff rooms, in family conversations, where she used to stay silent. "Dad's letter changed something," she told me. "He said I deserved to be heard." So I started talking. Raphael's truck roared up the driveway. Maria in the passenger seat, 3 kids bouncing in the back. Little Antonio was 8 now, already talking about becoming a firefighter like his dad. Isabella was 6. Obsessed with baking, she'd asked for her own apron for Christmas. Baby Diego wasn't a baby anymore. At 3, he ran everywhere and feared nothing. Raphael had made good on his promise to Antonio. He'd quit smoking in January, 9 relapses, but the 10th try stuck. He'd also started coaching youth basketball at the community center, channeling his anger into something that helped instead of hurt. "Turns out yelling at kids to run faster is basically the same as being a firefighter," he joked. Except, nobody dies. Elena flew in from New York, looking exhausted, but happy. She'd opened her own bakery in Brooklyn last spring, a small place called Mama Rosa's, specializing in Mexican-American pastries and her mother's recipes. The Times had written it up in September. There was a 3-week wait for her tres leches cake. "I finally understand," she told me on the phone before her flight. The bakery was never a cage. It was a foundation. I just needed to build my own house on top of it. She'd brought me a box of her conchas. They were perfect, better than mine, if I was honest. I didn't tell her that. A mother keeps some secrets. Miguel and David arrived together, their car packed with instruments and sound equipment. Miguel had started a music program for LGBTQ youth in Madison, funded partly by his share of the trust. David designed all the branding. They'd also finalized an adoption. A 7-year-old girl named Grace, who'd spent 3 years in foster care, waiting for someone to choose her. They were bringing her to meet the family for the first time. "She's nervous," Miguel warned me on the phone. "She's never had a big family before. Then we'll be gentle." Sophia was the last to arrive, James driving, her belly round with their first child. Due in February. They'd gotten married in October, a small ceremony at the cottage. Just family, with Father Diego officiating and Miguel playing guitar. She'd gone back to work after a 6-month leave, but something had shifted. She delegated more, rested more, let other people carry weight she used to insist on bearing alone. Dad was right, she told me. I can't save everyone, but I can save some people, and that has to be enough. Diane didn't come to Christmas Eve. That would have been too much, too soon. But she'd completed her restitution payments 3 months early and sent me a card in November. Rosa, I'm not the person I was. I may never be good, but I'm trying to be better. Thank you for showing me that was possible. I didn't reply. But I didn't throw the card away either. By 5 p.m., the cottage was full. 12 adults, 6 children. One very excited dog that Raphael had adopted in March and named inexplicably Biscuit. We weren't baking 1,000 loaves this year. We didn't need to prove anything anymore. Instead, we baked together just because we wanted to conchas and pan dulce and the sourdough Antonio had perfected over 40 years. The kitchen was chaos. Flour everywhere. Children underfoot. Raphael arguing with Elena about oven temperatures. Carmen teaching little Grace how to shape dough. Miguel's music playing too loud while David filmed everything on his phone. I stood in the doorway, watching. This was Antonio's dream. Not the trust, not the money, not the test. This, a family that chose each other. A kitchen full of noise and mess and love. Sophia appeared beside me, one hand on her belly. Mom? You okay? I wiped my eyes. I'm perfect, Mija. Absolutely perfect. Outside, the snow kept falling. Inside, my family kept baking. And somewhere, I knew. Antonio was watching. After everyone left on Christmas night, cars disappearing down the snowy driveway, tail lights fading into the dark like fireflies in winter, I sat alone by the fire. The cottage was quiet now. Dishes washed, floors swept, leftovers packed into containers that my children would find in their cars tomorrow, because a mother never lets her babies leave without food. I was 70 years old. In the past year, I had been stolen from, threatened, dragged into court, and forced to watch my family tear itself apart. I had also been embraced, forgiven, surrounded by grandchildren, and reminded why I spent 45 years waking before dawn. Both things were true. Both things were my life. I reached for Antonio's wooden box, still sitting on the mantel where I'd left it last Christmas. Inside, beneath the empty envelopes and faded photographs, was one last letter, the one he'd written just for me. I'd read it 100 times, but tonight, I read it again. Mirosa, if you're reading this, then our children have come home. Not because of the money, though the money helped get their attention. They came home because you showed them the way. I knew you would. I've known it since the day I met you. A 17-year-old girl with flour on her hands and fire in her eyes. You were the strongest person I'd ever seen. You still are. I'm sorry I left you alone. I'm sorry I kept secrets. I'm sorry I couldn't stay long enough to watch our grandchildren grow, to hold your hand on the porch of this cottage, to tell you every day how much I loved you. But I'm not sorry for the test. Our children needed to fail before they could succeed. They needed to lose something before they understood what they had. And they needed you, not me, to guide them through it. Because you've always been the heart of this family. I was just the one who did the math. Here's what I want you to know. Mi amor, the bakery was never the point. The money was never the point. The bread was never the point. The point was time. Time together. Time around the table. Time spent kneading and laughing and arguing and forgiving. That's what we were really making, all those years. Not loaves, memories, moments. A family that would outlast the both of us. You gave our children that gift, even when they didn't deserve it. Even when they forgot to say thank you. Even when they left you alone in a garage and pretended not to notice. You kept giving anyway. That's the lesson, Rosa. The one I hope they finally learned. Love isn't something you earn. It's something you give. And the more you give it away, the more you have left. I'll be waiting for you. Not yet, not for a long time. I hope, but someday. And when you finally walk through that door, I'll have fresh bread ready. The good kind. Made with love. Until then, keep baking. Keep teaching. Keep being the best thing that ever happened to me. Con todo mi amor. Para siempre. Antonio. I folded the letter and pressed it to my chest. Outside, the snow had stopped. The moon was rising over the frozen lake, turning everything silver and still. 70 years old, a widow, a mother of 7, a grandmother of 9, soon to be 10, when Sophia's baby arrived. What did I have to show for it? Not the money. The trust had been distributed. $214,285 to each child who participated in Christmas Eve. Marco and Carmen had immediately donated a third of theirs to Street, Michael's shelter. Lucia used hers to pay off her mortgage. Raphael started a college fund for his kids. Elena invested in her bakery. Miguel and David put theirs toward Grace's future. Sophia was saving for the baby, the $200,000 reserve fund I'd kept for myself. Not because I needed it between the bakery sale, Antonio's investments, and my social security. I had more than enough. I kept it because Antonio asked me to, because he wanted me to have the power to help, if helping was needed. So far, it hadn't been. My children were learning to stand on their own. That was the real inheritance. Not dollars, not property, not a trust fund with conditions attached. The real inheritance was this: 7 adults who had remembered how to love each other, who had learned that showing up matters more than being perfect, who had discovered that bread doesn't lie, and neither does family. And the only test that really counts is the one you take every single day. I thought about the people watching this story, the ones who'd followed along, hour after hour, waiting to see how it ended. Maybe some of them had families like mine, scattered, wounded, held together by threads too thin to see. Maybe some of them had parents they hadn't called in months, siblings they'd given up on, children who'd forgotten their way home. Maybe some of them were sitting alone right now, wondering if it was too late. It's not. It's never too late. If an old woman from Pilsen can forgive a son who stole from her, welcome back a daughter who abandoned her, and teach a family of strangers how to bake bread together on the coldest night of the year, then you can make a phone call. You can send a text. You can show up. That's all it takes. Not perfection, not a grand gesture, just presence, just time, just the willingness to say, I'm here. I'm not giving up on you. Let's try again. Antonio knew this. He designed his whole test around it because he understood something most people forget. Family isn't blood. Family isn't obligation. Family isn't even love. Not really. Family is a choice you make every single day. A choice to stay when leaving would be easier. A choice to forgive when holding a grudge feels safer. A choice to show up again and again until showing up becomes who you are. I stood up from my chair, walked to the window, looked out at the frozen lake, the snow-covered pines, the moon hanging low and full over the world my husband and I had built. Tomorrow, I would wake at 5 a.m. I would make coffee. I would bake something maybe conscious, maybe sourdough, maybe something new I'd never tried before. And I would wait for phone calls from children who were learning to call more often, for visits from grandchildren who were learning that Abuela's cottage was a place where they were always welcome. For the day coming soon now, I could feel it when Sophia would call to say the baby was coming, and I would drive through the snow to hold my newest grandchild in my arms. I would wait, because waiting is what mothers do. And while I waited, I would remember, bread doesn't lie, love doesn't run out, and family, real family, is the only thing worth fighting for. If you haven't talked to someone you love in a while, call them today. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Today. You don't know how many Christmas Eves you have left. And if this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who's lost. Someone who's given up. Someone who's forgotten that coming home is always an option. Subscribe for more stories like this. Leave a comment telling me about your family. The good, the bad, the complicated. I read every single one. Until next time, keep baking. Keep showing up. Keep choosing each other. Until. Keep choosing each other. Until. Keep choosing each other. Until next time. Keep showing up. Keep choosing each other. The bread is always rising. The door is always open. And somewhere, someone is waiting for you to come home.